our spirit? What is it? Where does it go? Are we able to see them using our mind's eye? If so, just what can spirit teach us? Welcome to School Through Spirit. Host DeEtte Renee is a certified psychic medium and master teacher of psychic and mediumship development through LWISSD. DeEtte was born knowing spirit and now is here to help you better understand the spirit world. And now your host, DeEtte Renee.
Good morning, everybody. This is a special Tuesday edition. As everybody knows, once a month I do go on live to interview guests. And this month, February, I can't think of a better month to other than Karen K. It is obviously the month of love, and to me it's about beauty and all those wonderful uplifting things. And Karen K is a Hay House author of fairies and mermaids, and she really truly is the per se the UK fairy. I don't know what else to say. She's just an amazing lady who really has gone out there above and beyond, maybe in a field that maybe not everybody feels so comfortable with. And I will tell you what, I'm so happy she does this, because a little bit of fact that people don't know about me is I'm considered a fairyologist. And that is through Doreen Virtue's class, when Doreen was still teaching that class, and way back in the day. So without further ado, I would love to invite Ms. Karen in and have you see her, meet her, and talk about what she does. Welcome, Karen.
Hi there.
Hello. I got all excited, just super excited. So thank you so much. Thank you. I love to bring people in once a month, just to interview and bring them to the forefront so people can see you and get to know you a little bit more, you know? So my first question to you is, how did you ever get into fairies? I know you're in the other side of the ocean, and it's a little bit probably more well known there than there is in the United States, but how did you get on this this thing with fairies?
Well, it started when I was a little girl, actually, and I was living with my grandmother in London in a place called Charlton, and she had a beautiful garden, and I remember just being with her as she was pruning the roses, and all the rose petals would fall down, and I would gather up the rose petals, put them in a pot, add some water and mush them all up. And at the time I believed I was making perfume for the flower fairies, but I was actually making rose water technically, and I would leave it out overnight in what I call a liminal space, a space in between, and it was actually in between two garages, or garages, how you say it over there. And it was my nan's garage and my neighbour's garage, and there was this thin little space that you could go down that I don't think I could even get one leg through now, to be honest. And I would leave the rose water there, or the flower fairy perfume there, and then I'd go to check it the following day and it would be gone. And the more kind of rational minded among us might say, well, of course it evaporated. And yes, it did. But also I knew back then, with my innocent fairy heart, that the fairies were absorbing the energy of that perfume, of the rose water. And that's my earliest memory. And I found a photograph the other day of me in my grandmother's garden next to the roses. So it's really lovely to have that memory of my first interaction with them. And then I would perceive them as little points of light dancing around, really vivid colours. And it was the fairies penetrating from their parallel dimension on the earth into ours, and I would just perceive them in this way, and that has never gone, actually.
Oh wow, I love that, because I think people always presume you're going to see a fairy as a little being with little wings, and fluttering around, and that's really not. I've never seen them that way. I've seen them here in my mind, but never in a 3D dimensional force this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does make
Although
sense. It makes total sense, because basically fairies, it takes energy for them to come through to show themselves. They'll only show themselves if they want to. And I have been blessed to see them in what you might call typical fairy form, how we might expect to see them, except it was a bit of a surprise when I did, because the fairy that I saw that had the wings and the whole kind of thing that you would expect was a gigantic fairy the size of a tree. And it really threw me, because I was driving along a local road where I live, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see the gigantic legs. And obviously it was all happening very quickly, but also very slowly. And because I was concentrating on driving, which is super important. And then I just glanced briefly, and I just followed these legs up, and I came to some knees, and it went up and up. And it was a giant fairy standing next to a tree. And
wow.
I got home and I felt, wow, that just, everything that I had thought I knew about fairies, everything I thought I had known, wasn't true, because I thought fairies are little things and they flutter around, and I was obviously perceiving them as lights, but to see one so gigantic, as big as a tree, just threw me. So I tuned in, I asked, how can this be? And they just said, and it makes really a lot of sense now, they said that fairies will always be the size of the plant, the tree, the bush, the flower that they are the guardian of, because everything that grows has a fairy guardian. They've got different names, but I'll call it fairy just for the ease of this conversation. So yeah, that, I was educated, definitely.
That makes complete sense to me. And thank you
Yeah.
for that, because when I lived in northern Wisconsin, I made this really rather large fairy garden. I knew they were there. I could feel them. And it was during my course. So I thought, what better way than to honor them? And I did that. And obviously I moved away from that and came back. And my friend still owned the property, and she'd had a fire one night, and she talked to the fairies, and she said, Jet really misses you. We need to find a way of showing her that you're still here. And she was taking pictures of the fire, and here were images of fire fairies, all in a fire element. They were all like fire, though, not per se what I would have expected either.
Yeah, yeah. They will, I mean, sometimes we forget that they're magical beings, so they can shapeshift,
Mm-hmm.
they can present themselves to us in any way that they wish. And when we see the fairy lights, the tiny little lights that many of us see, not everybody even knows what they are, and they're usually out of the corner of your eye, and you just look and then it's gone, and but you see them. They're penetrating through because they want to be seen on some level, or the person viewing them is of that kind of heightened awareness where they can perceive the fairy beings. And also other spirits can show themselves in that way. Angels as well can come through, but they tend to be larger. For me anyway, my experience is that they come through as like really large orbs, and generally they're blue or white or gold, and they're pulsing, and they're slower, whereas the fairy lights, you'll know, because they just move around so quickly.
They do. Is there a way to like bring them forth, or ask them to come see it with me, come help me? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, there are several ways to do that. In fact, I'm currently writing a book about that will be released later this year, and ways that we can call upon the fairies, things that we can do to communicate and connect with them. It's not a science, but there are certain things that you can do to hasten this. And it's always, the thing about fairies is that they're not really predictable, like certain spiritual schools and teachings. You know what you're doing, what's going to happen. With fairies, there's always this unknown quantity, because they are free spirits and they do have egos as well. They're not the same as human egos, but they definitely have distinct personalities. And this is where their reputation for being a little bit cheeky, a little bit mischievous can come from. However, there are also fairies who are of love and light, who are also wanting to ascend. And I'm not sure if yourself or anybody listening or watching now is familiar with the work of Brian Froud, who is known to us as the father of art, and he's created oracle decks with his wife. Now, in the first oracle deck, which is called the Fairies Oracle, and that has some fairy beings in there that look, they're just light. They're light beings. And I with him about this once, and he said that they're fairies that are in that space of ascension. So fairies can too. And it was just a very interesting thing for me to hear, because fairies have a bit of a bad reputation across the board. People are like, don't talk to fairies, don't interact with them. These poor fairy beings, they've just had this terrible PR. So I feel like it's my role, self-given role, to actually put a positive PR back on the fairies and appreciate them for being the guardians of the land, which primarily that is what their role is, and for having these magical qualities, so we can reach out to them and they can in turn reach out to us. There are several ways that we can do this. I can share some during this conversation if you like.
Please do. Please do. I think people would like to know that, just to bring a little bit that into their life.
Yeah, sure. So the one that I tend to tell people, especially people who are just what I call fairy curious, they're just a little bit interested. They don't want to dive fully in, and that is very wise, because you have to know the energies that you're dealing with. But this is a very gentle, easy way to have a connection with a fairy. And it's always on their terms, really, because we can reach out to them, but it has to be a two-way thing. So they may or they may not respond, but we're tuning into the realm of fairy with this little practice that I'll give you. So if you want to take a moment and just become relaxed wherever you're sitting, hopefully it's not too noisy, and ideally we would do this outside in nature, but we can connect with fairies wherever we are, because fairies can be everywhere. We have urban fairies too, so they're everywhere. But being in nature just enhances the energy, and then the fairy energy is more strong in nature, obviously. So in our mind, first of all, we're going to close our eyes, and then we're going to do what I call the 4-4-4 breathing technique, which is breathing in for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, holding the breath for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then releasing for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that will just kind of get you into this more relaxed space, and you can count to whatever pace you want. It might be a quick 1, 2, 3, 4 or a slow 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on your breathing and what feels most comfortable for you, because being comfortable and relaxed is paramount. So you'll do this, and then close your eyes if they're not already closed, and then visualize a beautiful golden cloak going over your shoulders, and then imagine that you're putting the golden cloak over your head. And this is for our spiritual protection, which is really important. Every time we connect with any spiritual beings, some form of protection is strongly advised. And this is a really simple method. And then imagine that you're in the woodlands and there's beautiful trees. It's a sunny day, and you look around at all the trees, and then you go towards a tree that you feel drawn to, an old, ancient, perhaps it's an oak tree, it can be any tree, whatever you feel. And then you go towards the tree in your mind, and you ask the tree, may I sit with you? May I connect with you? And then you wait for the answer, which is usually a yes, because trees love to interact with us. but give it a few moments and you will feel, you might not hear a yes or no, but you might. Usually we feel this. If it feels comfortable, then proceed. And then sit with your back against the tree. And then feel the connection between your body, your spiritual body, and the tree. Just feel that energy. All the while breathing deeply, feeling so relaxed. And then you can say out loud or in your mind, or just listen to me saying, fairies, fairies, come to me as I sit against this tree. So it is, and so may it be. And then just be for a few moments and observe what's going on. And you've put out your signal, if you like, to the fairies. You've made it very clear that you wish to connect with them. And now it's just a matter of waiting and being patient, or I say practice your pixie patience, because time in fairyland is very different to time in human land. So it is about being patient, being observant, really being aware of the subtle things that could happen. And then when you feel ready, open your eyes, come back into your body, wriggle your fingers and your toes, roll your shoulders, and then take the hood of your golden cloak, place that down again, and then put your cloak away, and then come back into this room right now. And that's the first little exercise.
I love that. That is beautiful. I mean, in my mind, when I said it, literally they came up from every tree, like, and they were just fluttering and just standing and curious. They felt curious about me, like hi and safe. And it was beautiful. I love that. And I hope a lot of other people had that response. Beautiful. Now, not to flip, I want to flip a little bit different, still staying with the fairies, but ever understand like maybe the fairy or maybe the woods or of nature having like a guardian being that's very fairy-like but maybe larger? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, this realm never fails to surprise me, and I am still learning, I'm still exploring. It's a continuous thing, and I've got connection with my little flock of fairies, as I call them, who come in and work with me and inspire me. But I'm always being educated, as I believe we all should be in this life. We never know everything, so anything is possible within those fairy realms. And we do have kind of fairy royalty, if you like, as a way of describing it, who would oversee the other fairies that are doing different work. So yeah, there's certainly different sizes and energies of fairies.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because when I moved into this property, there's quite a wooded area next to us, and we were only here a very short amount of time. And I got the sense of almost a larger fairy type elfin being with like a bow and arrow, like ready to shoot. Like, what are you here for? That this strong protection. And I literally just communicated like, I'm safe, I'm not here for anything, blah blah blah. He put the bow and arrow down and kind of walked on his way. But literally every moment since then, if there is any garbage in that woods, anything, I hear it and I need to go find it. And they direct me to find whatever this is they want me to take out of the area. It's beautiful, but
they can be kind of very protective, and they will trip you up sometimes, and you will get a bramble or something caught in your clothes as you're walking by. Occasionally that will happen. And really, if we think about humanity in general, humanity isn't always so respectful to the natural environment and trees, and they'll cut them down or they'll throw litter, as you say. And that's that we can show our respect and love of fairies. And it's not about worshipping, it's not about praying to fairies, it's about forming a bond, a mutual bond, because we're all inhabiting the same earth. It's just on different dimensions that we can interact occasionally. So it's about us showing our love, our care, our passion for the planet by picking up litter, by looking after our local environment as well, by looking at the products that we're using in our homes. Are they going to impact the environment in a positive or a negative way? Perhaps we can swap out something that is more chemical and then change it for something more natural. Little things that we can do, and it will be noted and noticed by the fairies. And like you say, when you go in, you can feel this sense of they're protecting, because that is their role. And if they can feel and see that you are in that place of love and passionate also about the earth, then you can start this kind of friendship if they want to. And it's very important that we do look after the planet as well.
Yeah. Somebody is asking, Paige is asking, in her spiritual practice, are there things that she should call on the fairies for, or especially help with one thing or another? What can the fairies help her with? Or when should she interact and say, hey, I need help?
Yeah, so it really depends. The fairies, there are healing fairies as well. Although sometimes when I'm in a space where I need a kind of strong healing, my immediate reaction would be to call on the angels. However, fairies and angels can work together. Fairies do have their own guardian angels too. Every living and spiritual being has a guardian angel, including fairies, which is something that was something else that surprised me. But when we, like for healing, there are healing fairies that can come in and help with that. So anything that you need help with, manifesting things, and it can be material things, but it could also be, I want to manifest more peace in my life. I want to manifest more joy in my life. I want to manifest more happiness in my life, whatever it might be. And I talk about this in my latest deck, which is Manifest with the Fairies. And I've got my cards here, so I will pull a little card for us all shortly. But in this deck, different things that you can manifest with the fairies, in harmony with them. So there's no limit what you can ask them for. However, it is always, everything will come in the way that it's meant to come. The fairies will not necessarily wave their wands and then this new car appears before you. However, they might prompt you to, hey, go round left instead of right, and then you see a car for sale that just happens to be the one that you want. So they can help guide us in that way. So it's very fun and magical when you are working with fairies in this way, because things can just happen. I call them metaphorical fairy doors. So these metaphorical fairy doors will just open and you'll find yourself, oh, I wished for this and now it's happening, or I wished for that and now it's happening. So it's a fun journey working with the fairies, definitely. And there are no rules really about what you can work with them for.
I love that. I have another guest, Tim, asking, he is creating an outdoor space, and I know personally that he's creating a fairy garden per space, or a space for the fairies, or it's something he's thought about. And he wants to know, like, what trees or plants or flowers, whatever, water, whatever would the fairies really appreciate to have.
Yeah, this is a beautiful question, and it is something that I talk about in my book that's coming out later this year. It's called Fairy Whispering, just so make a note of that, and it does cover fairy gardens. In fact, there'll be 111 different ways to connect with fairies in my book. So it's really beautiful just writing it, because they're inspiring me. They're giving me all these ideas and ways that we can connect with them, which I'm super, super excited to share with everyone. However, coming back to the fairy garden in particular, so there are certain trees. Now, I'm not sure about in every single country, but certainly within the UK, there's certain trees that are more associated with fairies, where fairies are said to reside or choose to dwell nearby. And they are the hawthorn, the oak and the ash. Now, you might have variations of these wherever you live, but there will be some kind of folklore or something that will guide you to the trees. Now, basically, any tree is going to be a potential home for a fairy, but also the gnomes, because gnomes are part of the fairy realm, as we know, but they're more associated with trees and tree roots and the earth and grounding and manifesting and hard work and all of these things. Any tree really, but oak, ash, hawthorn are notoriously known as fairy trees, certainly here within the lands. Now, also, we have certain plants and flowers as well. Now, always go for the natural flowers, not the ones that have been cultivated or hybrids and things like this. Go for the natural ones, like the wild, natural, rambling roses. Fairies love roses, and I can vouch for that because that's where my first connection with fairies happened when I was a young child. So wild roses, rambling roses, and the roses with the thorns. Roses need to have thorns, and they've kind of been cultivated out by society because people don't want to get pricked, but that is the rose's natural protection, so we can't take that away. It's quite selfish if we do that. So natural roses with thorns, the wild flowers, herbs, things that can be used for healing as well for us on a physical level, will also be flowers that the fairies will appreciate. Always put a little sign somewhere in your fairy garden that might say fairies welcome here, or be aware fairies sleeping, or something like that, to let it's like a physical overt sign that says fairies are welcome here, and that they'll know that and they can come in anyway, although they'll tend to come to any garden that is created with love and passion and pure intention. And beautiful fragrant flowers and night scented flowers as well, like your night scented jasmines and things like this. Butterfly bush, I don't know if you have that over there, we call it buddleia here. I think you do have it.
I have one.
Yeah, I think I saw it when I was
I have one. I have one. Yes, I have one.
Because they attract all of the butterflies, bees, and
butterfly bush.
Fairies and the insects and the animal realm as well. They're very closely connected because they all are living on the earth. So there is a very close connections. And sometimes fairies will shapeshift into dragonflies or bees or any kind of insect or little birds. And it doesn't mean that every bird or insect that we see is a fairy, but some of them will be. They'll be shape-shifted into those animals because they've got very close bonds. And the way to tell is just to observe that animal and see, why is that animal acting in a more unusual way than it normally would? Or they might just keep doing something that is out of character for that particular or insect. So planting things that are going to attract all of nature, all of the wildlife. Do not use pesticides. Do not have an immaculate lawn, because fairies cannot abide that, because usually those immaculate looking lawns are that way because of the pesticides, and that will detract them, it won't attract them. So thinking about natural things and things that make you feel good. And yeah, I'd love to see a picture of your fairy gardens.
Now I have a question, especially when you say, because I've always heard, and I don't know if I've necessarily believed it, but I've always heard if you have cats in your house, fairies won't go there. That's what I've heard, and I just don't necessarily believe it.
Yeah, I don't believe that as well, because I've had kind of proof to the contrary of that. So cats can observe fairy, because cats are very I don't want to say spiritual, but they're very perceptive, and they can often see that we can't see, and they can hear things that we can't hear. And so cats and fairies do actually have a bit of a relationship. And let's just briefly go, most people have heard like witches' familiars, and they're usually cats, aren't they? Well, you can also have fairies areas, and cats can be that as well. So I don't personally agree with the statement that fairies won't go where their cats are, because I've experienced otherwise. I think it's personal to that particular fairy, and that particular cat. Is that cat fairy friendly as well? So, you know, if it's just a beautiful cat that is open and receptive and isn't gonna be energetically mean to the fairy, then I don't see why they can't be in harmony together.
Right. I love it. One of my guests is saying, "Oh my God, I had a fly in the middle of the day. We're in winter, so we don't have flies in the winter." And I will tell you, I agree with them, because we've had flies in the winter, and I'm like, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here in the winter."
Yeah, you get unusual little things that just make you think, or they make you stop, and you're not necessarily thinking, I want to find a fairy, I want to find a fairy, but something will happen, and it's like, there's something different about you. And very often that can be, not always, it can be the fairy kind of shape shifting into that particular animal or bird as well.
Yeah. Now I want to bridge over to mermaids,
Okay.
because I know that's a natural bridge. Not everybody sees that as a natural bridge, into water sprites, mermaids, things of that nature. But I want to go there to educate some people.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about that and where that correlation is?
Yeah. So, well, let's kind of put this into some kind of context. So fairies, mermaids are all under what I call the elemental umbrella. So they're all guardians of their own domain, if you like. So mermaids are one of the guardians of the ocean. There are other guardians of the ocean, but for me, I connect in with the mermaid energy. It just happened naturally. When I first moved to where I live in Cornwall, I was living in the city in London, and then the first time I came to Cornwall, it's surrounded by all of this ocean and woodlands and cliffs and just all this beautiful nature. And I was compelled to draw mermaids and mermen, and that, you might say, well, there's nothing unusual about that, but it became like an obsession. And I wasn't, and don't consider myself to be, a conventional artist. So the extent of my art was matchstick people, but I was drawing these very intricate mermen and merwomen, and they were wearing crowns, and they had tridents, and they were on thrones, and they were under the sea. And I meticulously was drawing the scales on their tails and colouring them in silver pen, and it just became an obsession. And that was the way their energy first came to me. And then I would visit the ocean, which I do regularly, and connect with them in that way. It usually comes in a telepathic way. That's how they speak to me, or how I communicate with them. And that's when they conveyed their messages, which I put into my second oracle deck, which is called Messages from the Mermaids. And that's all about going deep into healing, diving deep into the emotions. They work with this ebb and flow energy. It's very emotional, it's very feeling, a lot of feeling in there. And also the ocean is affected by the moon. The moon affects our human emotions. So everything all ties in there, but it is about deep healing work with the mermaids, although they can splash around and have fun too. But it is, if you want to go into some healing work, usually of an emotional nature, then they're very good to connect with for that reason.
I always tell people I was a mermaid in past life, and they look at me and they're like, "How do you know?" And I said, "I'm allergic to fish, fresh and salt water, so I can't eat my friends. I don't take in iron very well, so I can't eat my home." And they look at me, I'm like, "You give me the other explanation as to why most of the menu has been taken off my plate."
Well, I always say that
I
half mermaid, half fairy, half human. And then people say, but that's three halves. And I say, yeah, maths is not my forte, or math is not my forte, but mermaids, fairies, and a little bit of human is my forte.
I love it. Well, I know everybody got my English has just really gone out the window. I know I brought your attention to everybody through your deck. And it was actually one of my guests that sent me your deck, the first deck, and I put it on and everybody loved this deck. I think everybody went on and bought it immediately because they thought this was the neatest thing they'd ever seen. And I will tell
Oh,
you, I have both of Brian's decks, and I loved his decks because of how he writes about, because the books are large and you can see the fairies and he's going, that's how he sees them. This is how they represent. And I always thought, oh, wow, that brought a tangible note to it. So when you
yeah.
brought up, let's say, a more user-friendly deck, because I love Brian's deck, but they're not for the faint of heart. And this is
Yeah.
such an amazing, I love this deck and I pull it out to use it quite regularly. And I didn't even realize I'd been using your mermaid deck since probably it was published. And I just
Wow.
love these two decks.
Oh,
You
thank
know?
you so much. Thank you. With the fairy deck, I've got a little secret here as well. Well, it's not a secret because I'm just going to show everyone. So on this year, that is coming out as a pocket size deck, or I like to call it fairy size. So you could pop it in your handbag and always have it nearby. That my first deck that you're referring to, Oracle of the Fairies, has been so warmly received all over the world. It's been published in several different languages as well, and now it's going to be available in this kind of little fairy size, which I'm really, really excited about.
I love those sizes. I know some people like, no, and I'm like, I love those sizes because they are throw them in your purse and go. You can put them in the glove box of your car. They're beautiful to have. They're beautiful. So I do want to go to this first deck. And how did you get the idea to create it? Before we go to your second deck, how did you get the idea to create a fairy deck?
Well, it had always been in my heart to create a fairy oracle deck from, I don't know how long, a long time. And to the point where, because I'm really into manifestation, visualization, law of attraction. So I started to write the deck, to write it before I even knew that it was going to be published, because I thought sometimes they say if you want to move home, then just start packing, even before you've know where you're going. Even if you don't know where you're going, anything like this, just start packing and acting as if you are going to move, and then the way very often will just become clear. And that's kind of what happened with the fairy oracle of the fairies, because I knew that it was going to exist, and then one thing led to another, and I was offered the publishing deal to create the deck. And so because I'd already started working on it, it was really fun. And then I teamed up with the artist. She's like a mixed media artist, Ginger Kelly, and it was so much fun with her. It's been fun working with all the artists on all of my decks, but because it was my first one, I remember that I call it the fairy fizzes. It's like where you get the goosebumps or the angel bumps, but I call them fairy fizzes, and just having these feelings and excitement and how it all came. And the fairies would literally inspire me, give me the messages, and then I don't want to use the word channeling, but it was kind of like it was coming through from them through my filter, through my fairy filter, if you like, and then all the cards, all the meanings, all the descriptions, it would just be very, very inspired. And I would go out into the woodlands, or I would write very late at night sometimes. And there's one particular card in the deck, I think it's called Wisdom. I think it's the Wisdom card, where there's a fairy and there's a white owl coming in. And as I was visualizing the cards and then having to explain that to Ginger, the artist, who then would create the images. So I was writing this particular card, and then this owl started hooting outside my window. And I'm getting the fairy fizzes right now whenever I talk about this, because it was so magical. And I just felt so connected, even though I was indoors on a computer doing this writing. The fairies were there, nature was there, the signs were just coming in. So it was a very, I want to say teamwork, really, definitely. And it was just so much fun to create that deck.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, I want to bridge to your new deck because I'm really excited. I know nobody's been able to see it yet because it hasn't hit yet. So, can you talk about that one a little bit?
I'll show you the so this is the cover of the guidebook. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh,
Okay.
it's beautiful. Yes, I
Yeah.
love that.
This,
Oh,
this
it's
is
gorgeous.
Celtic Fairy of Confidence, and this is the back of the cards. It's four
Oh, it's
wands.
beautiful.
It's 4 wands in a cross
Yeah.
formation, and there's little crystals and flowers and things on the wands. And should I pull a card now for you for the
Please
collective?
do. Please do.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I get all excited about cards.
So this deck came about because of all the I manifested Oracle of the Fairies. I manifested messages from the mermaids. I've manifested so many things in my life. I thought, well, now it's time to manifest with the fairies and share that. And it's been super, super fun doing this because, again, they come forward with just these ideas and inspirations that are so beautiful. And I know that some of them are coming from me, but then when they come from the fairies, they come in with a different energy. You can just feel it's coming in from them. That's the only way I can describe it, really. And again, on this deck, I work with the incredible artist Jane Delaford Taylor, who paints in oils, and she's worked with some other authors. I know she's worked with Diana Cooper and some other authors in Hay House too. And her art is just so beautiful. And it was so much fun working with her because I get very clear visions of what I want to see on the card. And sometimes, especially when you're working with fairies, it's very, very detailed. And she was really open to playing with that energy. So she's incredible. So this is lovely. We've got the card of intuition. Can you see?
I can. It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
The
this
gentleman
is the
fairy is beautiful.
fairy king of intuition, and there's the northern lights behind him, and he is helping us, or can help us, to tune into our intuition. And I know this is the work that you're personally doing anyway, working with your intuition, and so am I. So is my work that as well. But sometimes people want to know, like, what's the difference between my intuition or my ego or my mind, or how do I know the difference? And ultimately it comes down to feeling like it's an ongoing process of learning to trust your intuition. But usually it's the first small still voice that comes in any situation. Very often, as we override this voice because our egos want something else. It could be like, don't do that, don't go there, turn left, turn right. And we might ignore it because it's so small, it's so still, it's so subtle, but it's there. And it always comes through first. And often, like I say, we will override it because it isn't what we want.
Exactly. It's exactly what we do.
Yeah, we do. And I've done it lots of times. So Fairy King of Intuition is coming in to help us to really tune into our own intuition and to manifest this more strongly in our lives. And like I was saying earlier about the deck, the manifesting, it's not always about manifesting things. It can be about manifesting feelings and helping to enhance the manifestation of our own intuition as well. So I really hope that resonates with everybody watching now.
Oh, I know it does. I know it resonates with me hugely. So I appreciate that so much, and hopefully with everybody else listening too. Now, this deck they can pre-order, correct? Can they pre-order it?
It's out now, actually. It came out on the 5th of December, and it can be ordered where it is on Amazon, and it's on all good bookstores. So yeah, in shops as well, in the stores and online. So you can get it anywhere. I say make sure you're buying the official deck that comes with the guidebook inside. There is never a QR code on the back of my decks. Those decks you want to avoid. If you see a QR code on the back of a deck, it's not real. So get the official deck. It will say published by Hay House. It will have the ISBN number, and it will have my name on it. And yeah, Amazon is an easy place to get it, but there are lots and lots of other bookstores that you can get it from. And what I would ask, a little fairy favor, if anybody does have the deck, or if anybody gets it and they like it, to please leave a review on Amazon, because that is super helpful, not only for me, but for other people who are looking for a new deck.
I'm going to have to run out and get that deck so I can review that one too, because I love your decks. I won't even, I love your decks. They're so beautiful. They're such a beautiful bringing together collaboration of everything you do, you know. Now the book, can they pre-order the book?
Not yet. So best thing that I suggest for all of this news is to sign up to my newsletter, and then you'll be the first to hear about anything as it's happening, when it's happening. And that is simply my name, karenkay.co.uk. So it's KarenKay.co.uk.
I love that. I love that. And I hope many people go there and sign up and get this beautiful information from you, you know, because I know a lot of times, again, as we both know, fairies, at least in the United States, tend to be in this child mind form, and not, oh my gosh, they're available to everybody and they're real. And I hope more people come and find the information that you're willing to give them and share with them, so that, you know, we get more than just the Ireland thought process of fairies. you know, because I don't know about you, I don't necessarily believe if I go to a fairy mound, they're going to steal me and I'm never going to get to go home. So
it doesn't happen that nowadays.
Well, that's what I brought up, because I can remember as a child going into the woods in this beautiful meadow opening, and playing with them and them being there. And I used to spend all my free time there. And then I got brought out of it because, quite frankly, everybody said, oh, no, they're going to steal you. Don't go there. They're going to steal you. You'll never come home. And that was, it scared me away from the fairies until I was an adult.
Yeah. That does happen a lot. And I feel like they have stolen my heart, but I've willingly given it to them because I love the collaboration that I have with the fairies. I feel very blessed that they've they are connecting with me, and I'm certainly not the only one. As you say, you've had fairy experiences, you have them. There are many other people who are sharing their work with the fairies, and they're all different. They're all coming through different filters, and I just feel very, very blessed to be in the position that I'm in, where I'm able to talk about this with people like yourselves on TV, on radio, on magazines, and now in a book, which is coming out later this year. And yeah, I feel very, very blessed to be. I see myself as a little bit of a fairy ambassador.
You're doing a very well job at it. Very good job at it. And you teach about it also. Do you teach also?
Yeah, I do. I will be having a course later on. I do lots of in-person events. Most of those are in the UK, but I might be doing something in the US later this year. It's not 100% confirmed yet. And I do a lot of stuff online. Again, if people join my newsletter, then I'll share when I'm doing things. And also when you sign up to the newsletter, you'll get a free fairy meditation as well that you can download and listen to. So that will be another little way into connecting with the fairies. But I love sharing in person. it's great sharing online. I love that because it's just bringing the world closer together, isn't it? I mean, you're in the US, I'm in the UK, and we're able to just have this beautiful conversation about fairies. It's like technology, it's quite magical as well, isn't it? But to be in the same room, in the same space as someone and share is something that I greatly enjoy, and I will be doing more of that. But I'll also be releasing a course later this year as well.
Oh, beautiful. And I hope a lot of people come to go see it and see you and get more information and take your courses, get your book, because truly you have become quite the ambassador. And I won't lie, I hope you go into the angels too someday. just a wee bit into the angels.
The angels are always with me, and I work with fairies and angels. I do lots of other work that I don't really talk about as well, but at the moment it's the fairies that are really kind of pushing me forward, if you like, in this situation. But the angels are always with me. I love angels too.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for coming to me today and sharing your knowledge and your beauty and the fairies with us, and giving everybody a little bit more of an understanding of them, to work with them and to realize they're just not fairy tales, that they really are a tangible being that are just on the other side of the veil.
Yeah, they are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening, and I hope to connect with you either on social media or through my website. Thank you for allowing me to share this beautiful virtual space with you today.
Thank you so much, Miss Karen. So I'm going to bid you farewell, and to everybody else, thank you so much for joining me today on this special edition. I will be back Monday with our normal program of enlightenment. And again, see everybody very soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
Our spirit. What is it? Where does it go? Are we able to see them using our mind's eye? If so, just what can spirit teach us? Welcome to School Through Spirit. Host Diet Renee is a certified psychic medium and master teacher of psychic and mediumship development through LWISSD. Diet was born knowing spirit and now is here to help you better understand the spirit.